Chapter 109, Weather Weapons Exposed, Causing Global Alarm. On the assault boat, the rest of the people also looked up at the sky and noticed the changes in the rain. My eyes widened. I suddenly thought of a possibility, and my heart beat faster. At the same time, China, the vast land, the originally pouring rain gradually stopped. Getting smaller and smaller. Of this scene, after being noticed by the Chinese people, everyone subconsciously looked to the sky. I saw the sky shrouded in thick clouds gradually cleared up, and the sun shone through the clouds and fell on the earth. Long lost joy climb up to the brow. This heavy rain that has lasted for 17 days seems to be coming to an end. The end is officially here. The state must have taken action. The same thought couldn't help but appear in everyone's mind. If not, this heavy rain will never stop so suddenly. Sakura Country Emergency Department. What? The rainfall in China is decreasing rapidly, and the weather is gradually clearing up in many areas? When the senior officials received an emergency notice, they suddenly stared at each other with big eyes. Thunder and lightning disasters in China did not last long. It didn't even cause any casualties, but the heavy rain is getting smaller and smaller quietly, and there is a faint tendency to stop. My previous guess was wrong. A short president sighed with shame on his face. It seems now the thunder and lightning disaster that covered the country was not caused by monsters, otherwise the heavy rain would be impossible to stop. If this is the case, doesn't it mean that China has found a way to break this disaster? The other senior executives looked at each other with shock on their faces and muttered, "But how did they do it?" According to satellite monitoring displayed in the territory of China, the amount of rain is decreasing rapidly. The sky gradually cleared up. It is not a certain area, but the entire territory spanning 9.6 million kilometers is sunny. This method, let them be surprised, it is not difficult to control the weather of a certain local area. The Sakura Country can do it too, but controlling the weather across the country is equivalent to a magical method, civilized by modern science and technology. Can it really be done? Gaul at Disaster Response Center. A high-level emergency meeting is being held quietly. Weather weapons. A meteorology researcher stood up and said with certainty, the series of changes that China has seen show that they have mastered meteorological weapons, but control the climate within the territory. Hearing this, the rest of the people were silent, somewhat exhausted. 17 days have passed since the fourth round of trials, and 3/4 of their Gallic territory has been swept away by floods. The remaining people, all migrated to the mountains. The research team studied day and night, but could not find a way to stop the heavy rain. There has been no movement on the Big Brother side of the United States. Around the world, China was the first to break through again, ending the heavy rain ahead of schedule, and he also mastered incredible meteorological weapons, which reversed the celestial phenomena in a short period of time, making it generally sunny. I remember that our country also proposed the idea of weather weapons, but in the end, a senior executive pursed his lips and recalled, in the end, we got stuck on a few core technologies and let it go. The meteorology researcher nodded. Inside the Book of Life and Death and Demon Mirror, created by China before, were so imaginative that they could not understand the principle at all, but various countries have done some research on this weather weapon. Because of this, they now know more clearly how difficult it is to actually build it. Energy issues, particle issues, computing issues, information interaction issues, all kinds of signs. It all shows that China is going further and further on the road of science and technology. The gap with them is getting wider and wider. China Cabinet Meeting Room. Several old men are sitting together, handling the post-disaster reconstruction work in various provinces. Everyone looked relaxed and in a happy mood. The brows were furrowed for half a month, finally relieved. The latest monitoring report from the Meteorological Bureau shows that in 2 hours, all provinces across the country will be completely clear. The old man tapped his fingers on the table with a brisk rhythm. Let all departments be prepared and strive to achieve the best results. Quickly clear the remaining floods, restore order, and help people rebuild their homes. This round of trials, the economic losses and casualties China suffered were undoubtedly the largest in the previous rounds. Urban waterlogging, river floods, mountain debris flows, coastal typhoons. Under various disasters, China is in desperate need of rebuilding its homeland and restoring normal order. But, after this disaster, China's gains are also huge. Under the pressure of disaster, the Thunder God and Lightning Mother meteorological weapon finally came out. The domestic weather can be adjusted. It will. Since then, the weather in China will be subject to artificial macro-control. No need to worship God. The weather will also be smooth. Also, 17 days of heavy rain have also united the people of China. China Yongchang has become the common slogan of the whole people and is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. By the way, how is the situation in the United States recently? After handling domestic matters, the old man looked at Wang Yue. As China's strength increases surround the world now, the only country worthy of their attention is the United States. According to the information obtained by the Intelligence Department, the United States' recent work focus has been on the advanced subject of the Chosen One. Wang Yu frowned and answered. The specific research content is unknown. The old man nodded slightly, deep in the eyes, but there was a flash of worry. The United States often looks ahead and does not care about the future when doing things. Over the years, the United States has tinkered with many things, and in the end the world has paid for them, and the Chosen One. Always a ticking time bomb. According to the research direction provided by Yang Mo, the 12-sided crystal is suspected to be the handiwork of someone from the Demon Clan. Absorb the power of crystals and then move towards the path of transcendence. It's like stealing the power of the Demon Clan. Being looks strong in the short term, it is very likely to encounter backlash in the future, which is a huge risk. Therefore, while countries around the world were embarking on the path of being extraordinary, China resolutely gave up on this direction. In turn, the Yaoqi Biotechnology R&D Center was established to study dodecahedral crystals and made many advances in genes. Be prepared to take the road of universal gene lock improvement. It's been so long, and I don't know how the progress of the Yaoqi base is going. The old man from the Science and Technology Department murmured, his expression full of expectation. The popularity of genetic locks. It is crucial to China's overall rise. The United States Department of Defense. A secret laboratory. A three-legged, human-faced bird monster was tightly bound to the experimental platform by several alloy chains. Is in a coma. Moveless. 7 researchers in white coats came forward with surgical tools, preparing to open the skull to remove the 12-sided crystal in his brain. Aside, Steve waited quietly, feeling quite excited. A later chapter will be updated in the evening. Chapter 110, a sudden change in the United States, real and fake. Steve, tied to the experimental table. It was the Ministry of National Defense's GU breeding program that enabled the feeding of 1,000 death row prisoners to cultivate the 4th level 002 imitator. As long as he can absorb the energy of the crystals in his body, you will have the opportunity to break through the bottleneck and reach a higher level. He had a feeling, once he can step into the 4th level, he will truly break away from the category of mortal. From then on, master more incredible powers. Breaking away the mysterious energy group left by 004 Rainmaker is easy. Start the operation. The 7 researchers looked at each other, wearing masks and gloves, hold the scalpel approaching the unconscious 002 imitator. However, just when the operation was about to start, a sudden change occurred. This 002 imitator, who was supposed to be unconscious, suddenly opened his eyes. The pupils blooming with a strange light. In an instant, the 7 people's eyes were distracted and their expressions were confused, as if they had lost their consciousness. Picked up the scalpel. Sluggishly, it stretching towards his neck, the artery in the neck ruptured instantly and blood spurted out. 7 people fell heavily to the ground and died on the spot. Not good. When Steve saw this, his expression suddenly changed. Step forward quickly. The terrifying electromagnetic force formed a field and enveloped the entire laboratory, trying to suppress the 002 imitator again. On the experimental table, the 3-legged monster with a human face and a bird's head suddenly sat up, looking at Steve with interest. Amazing, finally, I saw a powerful being. After that, his body was twisted and twitching, and he actually started the art of transformation in front of Steve. The next moment, he transformed into Steve. Even the voice is exactly the same as Steve. No different. What a magical power. Steve licked his lips and showed a devilish smile, then he extended his hand, pushed towards the surrounding space. The laboratory sealed by Steve using the electromagnetic field was instantly unsealed. Death. Steve grinned ferociously, and a terrifying beam of light erupted from his fingertips, nearly substantive. Go straight to Steve's heart. You can actually use my power? Steve's pupils trembled slightly, showing an expression of disbelief. At the same time, with rich combat experience, he quickly used his electromagnetic powers to form a protective shield on his chest, blocking the blow from the monster. I have to thank you for this. Steve smiled slightly, but his expression showed strong murderous intent. You want to kill me and replace me? Steve understood everything in an instant, and the chill in his heart surged crazily. Boom. Steve didn't want to say any more, and stepped forward, using the electromagnetic force all over his body to the extreme. It turned into an irresistible fighting force. Fighting with Steve for a while, the instruments in the entire laboratory were crackling and flashing. Woo alarm sound instantly spread throughout the Ministry of Defense. In the office, Jobs was drinking coffee and waiting for the experiment to proceed. Suddenly, aloud, piercing siren was heard. The complexion suddenly changed. He quickly walked to the window and looked at the laboratory not far away. The alarm in the laboratory, why did it suddenly sound? His eyelids were beating wildly and his heart was uneasy. I just called the secretary. I saw flames shooting into the sky over there in the laboratory, and there was a loud explosion. Boom! In the light of the fire, two figures rushed out. Violating the gravity of the earth, they stood in the air and fought fiercely. Take a closer look. Both of them are clearly superheroes created by their country. Steve, whether it is facial expression or behavior, motion habits, even the way of taking action and the abilities used are surprisingly consistent. The two fought together, and for a while they couldn't decide the outcome. His face was full of horror, and his scalp felt numb. The imitator must be an accident in the fourth-order imitator experiment. Only a few moments later, he reacted and knew what the problem was. Military, let the military come over quickly. Taking advantage of both of them being inseparable, he quickly ordered and mobilized the garrison strength of the Ministry of National Defense. 10 minutes later, I in the sky, armed helicopters, drone combat swarms, and various modern combat weapons locked onto the two people who were fighting. 2 divisions of the military even blocked the Ministry of Defense. It is surrounded by water. Wait, Minister, I am serious, he is the monster. Please let the military help me to destroy this monster. One of them took advantage of the break in the fighting to look anxiously at Jobs on the ground. Shut up! Seeing this, another person said angrily, I am the real one, Minister, don't be fooled by this monster, let the military know he can imitate my abilities perfectly, I can't defeat him alone, said the two fought together again. Electromagnetic powers emerged crazily, hitting the ground from the sky, and the scene was extremely exaggerated. When Jobs saw this scene, his scalp suddenly felt numb. Raw was his role as a top executive in the United States. I have seen many big scenes, I have never seen such an outrageous situation as today. 2 Steve's looks exactly the same, the behavior is exactly the same, the fighting methods are exactly the same. How can this be distinguished? Minister, in my opinion, one of the two must be true and the other false. The secretary on the side suddenly spoke and said thoughtfully, Jobs, he rolled his eyes, what is the difference between this and talking nonsense? I mean, how about we ask Steve's wife to identify her? She happens to work in the Ministry of Defense. The secretary smiled dryly and said quickly, she always. It's not like he can't recognize his husband. Jobs' eyes lit up. He nodded. It didn't take long. Steve's wife rushed to the scene. You two, stop fighting now. Jobs ordered with a dark face and a loudspeaker. The words just fell. The two Steves pulled away and landed on the ground, looking at each other with stern expressions, surrounded by thousands of heavily armed military elites, staring at the two of them. I was afraid that the two of them would get into trouble. Jenny, come and see who is Steve. Jobs turned around and looked at a blonde woman. Don't worry, Minister, I will definitely recognize it. The woman replied confidently, then stepped forward. 2 meters apart. He looked at Steve and Steve carefully. The result, it was found that there was no difference between the two in appearance, even micro-expressions, they are all surprisingly consistent. My husband had a nickname when he was a child, do any of you know? Jenny thought for a while and asked. Little Fatty. The two looked at each other and replied in a somewhat unspeakable way, what is my husband's favorite fruit? Loquat fruit. My husband dreams and talks in his sleep every day. What does he say? After more than 10 questions, Jenny, who was originally confident, gradually became confused and somewhat doubtful about life. Chapter 111 Realm Portal. No matter what question she asks, the two Steves in front of me could both answer quickly, and the answers were exactly the same without any hesitation. Even the look in his eyes is full of affection, and her husband in her memory, exactly the same. Can you recognize it? Jobs asked in a deep voice. Jenny swallowed, shook her head and said, I can't tell. Jenny, I really mean it. Do you believe me? Do you still remember the promise we made together on the shores of Holy Spirit Lake in Florida? When one of the Steves saw this, he became anxious instantly and not to be outdone. The other Steve. He said quickly, Jenny, don't believe him, he is a monster in disguise. Your birthday will be in 2 days. I have prepared a gift for you a long time ago, and it is in the safe at our house. To prove your identity, the two of them went crazy and testified, telling one thing after another that only Annie and Steve knew. It's just, as Jenny listened, she became more and more confused. It is even more difficult to determine which one is true. When Jobs saw this, his face became even more ugly. If the 002 imitator is pretending to be someone else, he didn't need to distinguish the true from the false at all, and killed both of them together with the false. But impersonator 002 is the most powerful chosen one in the United States. Its strength ranks first in the world. It is a rare and top-notch extraordinary combat power in the United States. For a while, he didn't know how to deal with this emergency, and judging from the situation of the two fighting just now, after breaking through the fourth level, the 002 imitator, who originally had little combat power, can obviously perfectly copy the power of others and use it skillfully. The current 002 imitator, the danger has risen to an extremely high level. A mishandling it may bring disaster to the United States. Fortunately, Steve is here now, and he can fight the opponent 50-50. This monster is afraid of the military taking action, so it is so honest. From now on, you two will stand here and you are not allowed to leave even half a step. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice to the two Steves in front of him. Anyone who wants to leave is a monster, and the military will kill them at all costs. Hearing this, the two Steves looked at each other, their expressions flickering. I don't know what I'm thinking next. Jobs quickly turned around and summoned the country's top think tanks and scientific researchers, preparing for a meeting to discuss how to identify Steve. China Monster Research Institute. Dean's office. The heavy rain crisis is finally over. Yang Emo leaned on the chair and took a long breath. After Thunder God and Lightning Mother reconstructed the image of China, he left the Thunder God and Lightning Mother Research and Development Base. Back here, the maintenance of Thunder God and Lightning Mother and the iterative upgrade of quantum computers have been handed over to Sun Changqing. Of course, the highest authority over these national weapons rests in his hands. Without his permission, N01 can activate the weapons, Book of Life and Death, Demon Mirror, and Thunder God and Lightning Mother. Today, the whole land of China is clearing up and the sun is shining on the earth. Flood it is quietly retreating. With China's terrifying execution capabilities, it won't be long before the normal order, before the disaster can be restored, and according to the Book of Mountains and Seas, the spirit race is a mysterious race bred by the elves of heaven and earth. There is a wonderful fit with heaven and earth, therefore every Eldar masters a natural power. When it appears, it is often accompanied by various disasters, but China has already tried its best in this round to build Thunder God and Lightning Mother. The threat of the next two rounds of trials will be greatly reduced. Now, we can start other aspects of the layout. Yang Emo took a deep breath and pulled out a piece of paper from the desk. Brush. He wrote a brief 7 words, 3 Rome portal plan. Since the 4 rounds of civilization trials, China and other countries around the world have been passively enduring the trials of civilization, allowing monsters to come point one round after another. In front of the monster, all countries are exhausted and struggling to survive, and there is no time to explore the origin of this civilization test. And now, with Thunder God and Lightning Mother in charge, China got plenty of breathing space. At least, in the next 2.5 months, China will have enough energy to explore this civilization trial. If you want to find out the truth about the civilization trial, you must break through the blockade of the earth. Yang Emo murmured softly, always stay on earth. We can only passively welcome disasters and never know the truth behind them, only escape from this cage. Only then will China have the opportunity to implement its own plan and achieve true transcendence. And 3 Realms portal. It is a key part of the science fiction heavenly plan, created in the previous life. Its inspiration, it comes from the transmission channel that can reach the lower world in the mythical heaven. Through this channel, the gods in heaven can travel freely between the 3 realms of heaven, earth, and man. As long as the 3 worlds portal can be built, the blockade above the earth will be broken. At the same time, America, Department of Defense. In the conference room, is there still nothing you can do? Looking at the top experts below, Jobs frowned. The meeting lasted 2 hours. The experts below have put forward more than 10 suggestions, but after trying, none of them are useful. Through various methods, it is impossible to identify who is Steve among the two. In the research of monsters, China has always been unique in the world. A monster researcher below pondered for a moment and said, why don't we ask them for advice? The words have not yet finished. In the conference room, everyone couldn't help but look at each other with strange expressions. They have never dealt with China, plus, this mess was entirely caused by themselves. Ask Huaxia for advice? I'm afraid it's a joke to China. Then do you have any other options? The researcher shrugged and asked. Everyone was momentarily speechless. Indeed, those methods they just discussed, none are useful. The 4th level 002 imitator cannot be identified at all. Are you sure that China will help us? In other words, can they identify the real Steve and the fake Steve? Jobs took a deep look at the researcher inside. Asked in a voice, right now. Steve's presence is crucial to them, never give up easily, ask China for advice. It's embarrassing or something. Secondly, what he is most worried about. In fact, he loses face and the problem has not been solved. I can't guarantee it, but the matter has come to this, I think. This is the last way. The researcher spread his hands and said helplessly, if neither of them can identify Steve, then we have to find a way to eliminate both Steves. Jobs frowned. I thought about it for a long time. Eventually, he nodded slowly. Today I am busy with family matters, so I am just going home to update. The next chapter is scheduled for 10 o'clock. Feel sorry. Chapter 112. The strange action shocked the world. China Monster Research Institute. Dean's office. Tuck, come in. Yang Mo, who was conceiving and perfecting the Three Realms Portal plan, frowned. Dean, there is news from the cabinet. Lin Shuayan opened the door and walked in, reporting, there was an accident in the goo cultivation plan in the United States. A 4th level 002 imitation. The person is pretending to be Steve, and it's hard to tell if it's real or not. Please help him identify it. Level 002 imitator? Yang Yamo raised his eyebrows, a little surprised. Looks like it. The United States in this life is still following the same path as in previous lives. Leave no stone unturned. Improve the level of 002 imitator and want to cultivate a higher level chosen one. It's just, they lack understanding of monsters and don't know the horror of the 002 imitator rising to the 4th level. This race. Born with incredible abilities, he can imitate others. Preliminary period. The strength is indeed very weak. No fighting power, but as time goes by, its abilities become more and more terrifying. Level 4, can imitate anyone at a lower level than him and copy his abilities 100%. Level 5, can imitate anyone in the same realm and copy their abilities 100%. Level 6, can be imitated. What did the cabinet say? Yang Yamo thought for a while and asked. The cabinet said that you can decide for yourself whether to help or not. Lin Shuayan smiled bitterly and whispered, I don't think we actually need to help them. For the United States, she has never had a good impression. After hearing this, Yang Yamo frowned slightly. After a little thought, shook his head and said, the United States cannot lose control now. He is laying out the U3 Rome portal plan and is in urgent need of someone who can attract the attention of the civilization trial openly, disperse the pressure from those monsters. If the United States completely loses control and collapses rapidly, then monsters from all over the world will flock to China, with the few tools that China has now to control the country. It's not that I can't hold on. But this will inevitably distract a lot of China's energy. Lin Shuayan nodded thoughtfully then. He couldn't help but ask, but according to the information provided by the United States, every detail of the 002 imitator's transformation is the same, even their chosen one with the eye of deception, they can't tell the difference. How should we tell the difference? Yang Yamo smiled and didn't answer. Lin Shuayan looked at Yang Yamo and suddenly reacted, is it a demon mirror? Not bad. Yang Yamo nodded. But, Lin Shuayan was still a little skeptical. The chosen one in the United States didn't even recognize it. Our country's demon mirror can really recognize the 4th level 002 imitation. He couldn't recognize it because he didn't have enough realm to see through the disguise. Yang Yamo chuckled and said confidently, but the principle of the demon mirror is different from the extraordinary system. It reverses it as an electromagnetic wave that restores its true appearance. As long as the monster has not reached the 5th level, its disguise can be seen through. In the past life. In the 11th round, China used 300,000 troops to capture a 5th level Wu clan that battle with the coordination of a large number of advanced information-based high-tech weapons. The number of military casualties reached more than 100,000. Extremely tragic. After research, a lot of information about the 5th level monsters was obtained. One of them, IT, is a 5th level monster that can freely reverse its own physical laws and even stop emitting electromagnetic waves, but the 4th level monster, under the demon mirror, there will be nothing to hide. But the radiation range of our demon mirror is limited, and the United States is far away from us. Lin Shuayan couldn't help but say, no need. Yang Yamo shook his head and chuckled, asking for help, of course you have to have a begging attitude. Just let the United States bring Steve and Steve near our country. The United States Department of Defense. Has China agreed to help? When Jobs received the news, he couldn't help but feel happy that he didn't expect it. Huaxia actually agreed to help this time regardless of the previous suspicion, and the legendary mysterious weapon, Demon Mirror, will be used. Only due to the limited distance of the Demon Mirror, they can only send the 2 Steves to China to be effective. Quickly, notify the Air Force. He took a deep breath and quickly ordered, send 10 fighter jets, 20 helicopters, 30 special combat aircraft, and another F/A-18 fighter attack planes are also dispatched, and Steve and the 2 must be safely escorted to China. The reason why such a luxurious fighter group is dispatched, the most important thing is to control Steve and the others. The fighting power of these 2 people is extremely incredible, and can be called the 3rd level ceiling. Once out of control, let the monster escape, the consequences will be disastrous. Also, the purpose of this mission is an S-class secret and must not be leaked to anyone, including Steve. He paused and added, at the same time, countries around the world, countries such as Gaul and Sakura, have been paying close attention to the movements of the United States. Suddenly discovered in the United States, a highly luxurious combat regiment was dispatched, heading towards China. As soon as this news came out, it instantly shocked the whole country. What's going on? Is the United States crazy? Suddenly sending so many air forces towards China? I can't understand more and more of this world. This is totally unreasonable for the United States. The heavy rain in their country hasn't been solved yet? Is this going to break the pot? China is worthy of the United States if we fight hard. What does the United States want? Why? For a time all countries were in turmoil. Because of this unusual behavior of the United States, the intelligence agencies of various countries have speculated they all turned into melon-eating people. Sakura Country Emergency Department. What? The United States is going to send troops to China? After hearing the news, several senior officials sat up in shock. He showed an incredible expression. Countless speculations came to mind. Could it be, seeing that China has obtained SSS-level evaluations one after another, the United States wants to use force to threaten China and seize those mysterious weapons? Everyone, here comes the question. When the United States attacks China, it will definitely pass through us. Do we want to express our position? A senior executive suddenly spoke and said in a deep voice, if the United States, the coercion is successful, and we may still get some benefits from it. Hear the words, everyone couldn't help but look at each other. I started thinking about it. Obviously, this move by the United States makes it clear that it wants to break up with China. This time that we have to stand in line. It is obviously impossible to stand in China. China asked them to get out of here some time ago, but the United States did not notify us of its dispatch of troops this time. A senior executive frowned and hesitated. What if they are not going to China? Wouldn't they have made a big mistake? Look at this posture, 10 fighter jets, 20 fighter jets, helicopters, 30 special combat aircraft, and even F/A-18 fighter attack aircraft were used. Do you think the United States is traveling? The corner of the mouth of the senior executive who spoke first twitched. Next, asked rhetorically.